Direction Northeast. Hello, I'm Abby Hathorn. This program is a presentation of the Communications Department of Northeast State Community College. This episode of Direction Northeast continues our discussion on domestic abuse. We'll explore this critical topic and learn more about its devastating effects on the family. We'll start our discussion following these messages.
Our family gets together nearly every weekend. We laugh together, we enjoy each other, we have quality time together, and Northeast State has afforded us those opportunities. I'm a graduate of Northeast State, and my husband's a graduate of Northeast State, and both of our children chose to go to Northeast State. And I think it's because it provided us with an affordable quality education, and it was a wonderful experience. I'm Susan Graybill, and our whole family got our start at Northeast State.
One of the most troubling issues in America today is the persistence of domestic abuse and teen dating. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been victims of some form of physical violence by an intimate partner within their lifetime. Today, our guest, Ms. Debbie Masters, a community educator from Abuse Alternatives, will try to shed some light on the domestic abuse. Ms. Masters, welcome to Direction Northeast.
Thank you for having me.
To get us started on this topic, how would you define teen dating violence or domestic violence in that younger age group?
Teen dating violence is about one partner, and it doesn't even have to be teens, but about one partner wanting to control the other partner in the relationship. And it's really not even precipitated necessarily by anger. It's just this desire to control the other person and have them do what they want them to do, go where they want them to go, be at home when they want them to be there. You meet you at 5 o'clock, and if they get there at 5:02, it's unacceptable. Everything is dictated by the person who wants to have control in the relationship.
Now, on that subject, you talk about we have teens in it. Always get girlfriends are too clingy or boyfriends are too clingy. Can that be a form of teen dating violence, or can that be a sign of that?
I think it can certainly be a sign. Of course, it's not always, but yes, it certainly can be a sign. The violence usually begins with those kinds of steps, and then they escalate, become more common, become more frequent. But being clingy, as we say, could be a way of wanting to control. You have to be there with them, wanting to control the behavior and see what they're doing and where they are and who they're with at all times. So it would need to go a little further, but in awareness, I would want someone who has a clingy boyfriend or girlfriend to start thinking about to consider the fact that maybe this could get worse and end up in violence at one point.
Now, as teen violence is a growing problem, especially among the ages 11 and 17 in that age range, why do you think that teens don't often recognize that they're in some type of teen dating violence situation or even abuse?
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons. One, if you're in a relationship and you have invested yourself and your time and your effort into that relationship, then you care something about that person. And like I said earlier, the violence usually does not begin at the beginning of the relationship, because it would be so much easier to leave if that were to happen. We wish it did, because then you could just make a quick exit, say that's not for me. But so by the time it might begin, all of these little subtle things are happening. And at the same time, you may be growing fonder of that person. So you maybe don't see the things that are not as positive, because you're more focused on the person themselves. Secondly, I think that if you grow up around violence, or even just a small amount of violence, as we've talked earlier, you begin to see that as being normal. So if you see it in your own relationship, you just assume that it's the way it's supposed to be and it's acceptable to you.
Now, we all know that teenagers love their iPhones. I love my iPhone, and how it goes. So how is technology and even social media playing a role in that growing statistic of teen dating violence?
Through social media, you can keep tabs on someone just about all the time in some form, if you really want to, if you make an effort. So I think cyberbullying also has become a huge problem, because you cannot get away from it. If someone's being bullied or hurt, abused at school, you can't just go home and it'll be over with until tomorrow, because there's messaging and texting and the computer and just a variety of things. So social media can keep us connected, which is a wonderful thing, but it can keep the wrong people connected at the same time.
Now, the whole point of social media is so we can all have the social reaction. It's intentionally supposed to be a positive thing, but as you're saying, it can definitely have a negative effect. So why is it whenever teens get in that situation, they stay on social media, they stay in that relationship because they're just so afraid? Why do they continue to be afraid if they're not committed? They don't have children, they're not married, they're younger kids. So why are they so afraid of that?
Do you mean afraid of
Getting
potential
out.
abuse, or getting out of an abusive situation? Because I think that anyone in an abusive situation, it doesn't really matter the circumstances. If you fear for your safety, if you fear for your life, if it's just you, it doesn't matter. You still have those same fears. And whether it's bullying or teen dating violence or domestic violence in a relationship, there's that element of fear and feeling unsafe. And with social media, like I said, someone can keep tabs on you at all times. Where can I go and get away from this? Where can I go and hide? It's very difficult to hide now.
Now, whenever you're talking about the age group of this teen dating violence, around, between 11 and 17, do you think that starting dating at a younger age has an effect on the possibility of getting into an abusive teenage relationship?
I do, and statistics bear that out through the Family Justice Center. Show that people who are involved in dating relationships at a younger age may be more likely to choose partners who might be more controlling, or be more likely to just not understand what's happening to them because they are so young and they haven't received education or awareness about what to look for, if it's a red flag or if it's a component of a healthy relationship.
Now, why do you think that teen dating violence is becoming a rising problem in America?
Because I think domestic violence in general is. I think that human beings, I always say I'm never surprised at what human beings will do to another human being, but then unfortunately I always am. And I just think it's a societal ill, and dating violence is, bullying is on the increase, and dating violence, domestic violence. And why, I don't know, except that I think society is changing, and maybe we're becoming more accepting of certain behaviors. I think it's just an illness in society, and I think when the economy is bad, a lot of things break down. Relationships sometimes break down when the economy is not doing its best. So I think that's one thing.
Now, as far as teen dating violence, whenever you're talking about how they're being abused, it's not just physical, it's also verbally.
Oh, absolutely.
So what do you think, is it in the teen idea of things, is it more verbal or is it more physical?
I think it's very much a combination of all of that, and also very much emotional or psychological abuse. But we see combinations of all of it. Quite often it won't begin with physical violence, it might begin with emotional abuse or verbal abuse. And it may not be taken any further, but most of the time it does go into physical violence. But, emotional abuse is a huge, huge problem, because quite often the victim doesn't realize it's abuse. And, he doesn't hit me, so I'm not being abused. But if you're being isolated, if you're being told what to do, if you're being controlled, if you're being told you're lucky you're dating me, because if you didn't date me, nobody would date you. All of those things mess with our heads, and it does become abusive, because what it does, which is what physical violence does, it breaks you down emotionally. It destroys your self-esteem. You don't think you're worth anything. So emotional abuse is very, very, very hurtful, very painful.
Now, here on a college campus, we have to break into that discussion. We see all these things on the internet, articles about how women, or even men in some cases, have been abused while on a college campus, and they say, certain people will just say, oh, we'll just transfer somewhere else if you don't feel safe. So why is it that, once you get to that certain age, all of a sudden it's now your fault, and you must just leave if you're, if you're in that situation? So what do you feel about that?
I think that just to say, if you're in a terribly dangerous situation and you see the resolution being to leave, yes, that would take you out of that situation quickly, and that may be what you do need to do. But ultimately, that's band-aiding, because you haven't gained the skills to either recognize abuse or to address the abuse if you just simply move to another campus. but so you've got to gain those skills of what can I do to get out of this? What can I do to not let myself get back into another relationship? Are there behaviors that I'm exhibiting that I need to get in check that maybe are attracting me to these kind of controlling relationships? So I definitely think there's work to be done instead of just moving yourself or removing yourself from the situation.
Now, a good portion of the physical abuse and even verbal abuse that happens on college campuses with men and women, the statistics say that it's with people that they often know, that they're friends with or they've had classes with. So what would you say, you even hear stories about women giving in to sexual abuse because the persistence of the violator is so large. Why do you think women just give in?
With you're talking about with someone they know? Yeah. Well, I think that any of us can be worn down and torn down and just, emotionally battered, if you don't do this and just keep on and on and on and on. It would wear anyone out. And if you don't have the skills or the knowledge or the self-confidence to say, I don't need this is not for me, and remove yourself, then quite often you will be talked into something. Or if it's someone that you care about, this person who says, I love you, and if I didn't love you, I wouldn't ask you to sleep with me, or whatever the situation would be. It's harder to turn down a stranger, of course, than it would be someone you care about and you have a relationship with.
Now, 1/4 of female college students report experiencing some type of sexual abuse or violation while in college, and that's a large number if you really think about it. But what would you say is one way that we can start to kind of prevent that, because it's obviously a growing issue?
Education and awareness. If like you always hear, education is empowering. Well, education about a particular topic that can affect you is also very empowering. It gives you the skills to recognize if you're being pulled into an abusive relationship. It may give you the skills to know how to get out of one or know where to go for community resources. So things like what we're doing today, and our agency, Abuse Alternatives, has actually been involved with Northeast State on several occasions, trying to educate the students as well as the staff and the faculty, because it's not just the students on campus, it could be a faculty member. If 1 in 3 women is victimized, then, and you take a room full of 6 women, statistically, 3 of those or 2 of those women have had some experience with domestic violence, and we just don't know that. So education and awareness, anything that we can get out there and talk about. I've had kids come up to me after a presentation and say, that's the way my boyfriend treats me. I didn't know there was anything wrong with it. And the fact that I can't wrap my head around the fact that she doesn't see that makes no difference. The important thing is she is in it, she's received some education, and she's reaching out for help. So that's where we begin. It doesn't matter if I don't understand it or if I don't know why someone did something. They need something that I can give them to help them heal and be able to move forward safely.
Do you think colleges and high schools would benefit from integrating a program, not just for domestic abuse, but also dating abuse, into their school system somehow, or maybe they have like a help center on campus, or they have even working with people like you, so they have a hotline at the school? Do you think that would be helpful?
Every one of those ideas would be very helpful. And we do dating violence in the schools when we can. It's hard to get into the schools because they have X amount of time in a day, and they have all these things they need to teach by the end of the year. But we have had a good, strong dating violence program at Virginia Middle for several years, even before I took this position. And we go in there twice a year. We teach all the kids about a 45-minute presentation on dating violence and what to do if you're in it, signs to recognize if you could potentially be a victim. And we even go into advanced middle school. And we're pursuing other options. It's just very difficult because there is so much to teach in a short amount of time in a school day.
Oh, absolutely. And back on the subject of college, whenever you have, we hear about it all the time. And one of the statistics that I found is that 60% of rapes that happen on college campuses pertain to women who are either in a steady relationship or it's just casual. They casually know that person. Why do you think that statistic is so large as compared to just something a little bit more violent because they're giving in to that.
I think if it's not a stranger, then like I said, this is more of a power and control situation. Although stranger rape is also power and control, but I think when we get invested in a relationship, then the dynamics completely change, and the victim is just sometimes not real sure, should I or shouldn't I, or what do I need to know, and the abuser, the same way. It's that familiarity, and we don't know what kinds of situations, environments they're coming from. They may have been coming from a situation where violence was happening.
Do you think that these victims often just give in because they think that will make it stop?
I think that could be it. I think also victims maybe don't have enough self-confidence, and for example, if they go into a party and they drink or whatever, and you lose some of your inhibitions, you're not as embarrassed about things. So I know in particular in the middle school that we're in, they ask me to concentrate a little bit on how to behave at a party and what can happen if you do drink too much or whatever and lose your inhibitions. You're much more likely to be a victim, an unwilling victim, but you might be more likely to get involved in a sexual relationship when normally you wouldn't have.
Now, students often feel trapped in these situations because they are younger and we're so consumed by our technology. What's one way that they can kind of start and get to that point where they're not feeling so trapped anymore, even though their predator may be able to follow them every single way through technology?
What we tell all the people who are involved in domestic violence or dating violence, first of all, is seek out someone you trust. Seek out an adult, whether it's a friend, whether it's a parent, whether it's your counselor on campus, a teacher, law enforcement, someone you feel that you can go to and honestly talk about what's happening to you, and also be able to say, what do I do now? What can I do? Where can I go? Is this going to be with me forever? Because oftentimes they don't know what resources are available. And of course there's, our agency, Abuse Alternatives, but there are other agencies around that they can go to, the health department, law enforcement, but you've got to make that initial connection with someone cares about you and who trusts you. I mean, that you trust and will not, confide in someone else, whatever you tell them. And then there's just a series of resources in the community, and hotlines, for example. Someone can call our hotline just for information. Maybe they're wondering about, what do these behaviors mean? And we can help them sort through the behaviors and what they do need to be careful of. If there are some warning signs that they have, then maybe they need to be validated.
Now, one of the reasons that a lot of teen dating violence and even teen abuse doesn't go reported is because they fear of their parents finding out. And while we're taught from a young age to confide in our parents and let them know, because there's that comforting value, they're afraid that they're going to be judged. They're afraid that they're going to get in trouble. Why do you think, what can parents do to let their children know that you don't have to be afraid to come at me with this information if something like this happens to you?
I think pretty much just saying that. First of all, have established in your household that mom and dad or whomever the guardian is, we are someone that whatever it is you may need, whatever problem you may be having, whatever's bothering you, please bring it to us, and we will help you with it and help you figure out what to do and maybe who to talk with. So I think doing that throughout the child's life, first of all, is a good thing. And then if it's teen dating violence, I do think that students are a little less likely to go to parents the older that they get. I know as a mom, I would still hope my daughter at 34 years old would come to me if she has a really big problem, because she knows I love her, I'm invested in her, I want the best for her, and I will certainly help her get out of a tough situation. And I can at least be that connection to the resource in the community. If I don't know much about it, I know where to go to help her, get what she needs to get out.
Now, why don't you think that we talk about teen dating violence? We also don't talk about domestic violence, but it seems that teen dating violence and even collegiate dating violence goes a little bit, flies really low under the radar as far as what we're attentively talking about.
I think parents do not want to entertain the thoughts that they have raised a son or a daughter who's abusive, or raised a son or daughter who would be in an abusive relationship. I think until there's enough awareness, we don't even think of that. That's not on our radar. You know, we may worry about school, and we may worry about this and that, and grades and friendships and all that. Dating violence, like you said, it just may not be on their radar. We don't think of our kids that way, but we have to. We have to anticipate a variety of circumstances that could possibly happen to our children. And so I think preparation begins at home, but you know, it also has to continue through college. You have to know where to go, you know, for resources and to get help.
Now, what are some red flags that parents may be able to look for, whether, you know, their child is being an abuser or they're being abused? What are some red flags that they can look for to know and then be able to talk about that problem with them?
One of the main factors that I see in every abusive relationship, regardless of whatever else is there, is isolation. And isolation is when that partner wants to keep his partner, let's just say it's a male abuser or a male who's isolating his female partner. He does not want her to visit her family, to spend time with her friends. One, he doesn't want her to do anything or go anywhere that he isn't a part of. Two, he loses control. When she's gone to the movies with her friends, he doesn't know what she's doing for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So he has lost control temporarily, but that's enough to get him very upset. So isolation is removing someone from their support base, because also if you're being victimized, and let's say you have a big bruise on your arm, you go home, mom may say, well, Abby, where did you get that bruise? How did you get such a big bruise on your arm? I fell into the closet when I was trying to go through the door. I hit the door. You know, someone is going to ask you if they care about you. They're going to notice a difference in you. And the abuser can see himself losing control because it's starting to crumble if she is around friends and family who care about her and notice things about her that may be changing.
Now, why is there such this crave for control at such a young age? It's a little bit mind-boggling. Yeah, they can grow up in it, but what about the children that are not growing up around that domestic violence? What kind of inspires them to have that amount of control for a relationship?
If we knew, then maybe we could prescribe something that would stop it like that. But we don't know. Some people have this desire to control. It can start in the very, very early years of school. A bully is wanting to control the behavior of someone else. He's wanting to make someone afraid of him. He's wanting the attention of all the other kids if he's trying to start a fight with a kid on the playground. So it can begin at any age of a person. Also, if they're in a very controlling environment where they come from. Daddy's very controlling, mommy's very controlling, one or the other. They're witnessing it. It's becoming who they are. It's part of who they are. And so they take it wherever they go, whether it's school or work or the mall or wherever. They continue that behavior in their own relationships. So control, you can be controlling or you can not be controlling. And I mean, all of us would I would love for you to think the way I do. You know, I would love for everybody to say, well, Debbie, you're right. You know, but that's just not going to happen. And I can accept that. It might be tough, but I can accept the fact that someone doesn't agree with me. I don't need to control the way you think about something. That's your thought. You know, I need to control the way I think. We can have a dialogue about it, but I don't need to tell you who you have to vote for president because I think I'm right about my choice.
Exactly. Now, we talk about women being abused. It's an obvious factor, and we've been talking about it for this show, but there's also men and boy teenagers that are being affected by that as well. What would you say is one of the biggest things for men that causes them not to be able to get out? Because we see men as these, you know, strong, very prideful people. But
that's it.
But they're getting caught in that situation. Why
it's
can't they
that
get
expectation that a man is a strong and an independent person, could never be hurt or brought down by a woman. It's societal expectations, societal norms. It's hard enough for a female to report, and she's considered to be not as strong. But to just imagine, if you were a man, did you want to tell somebody that your girlfriend beat you up? You know, that's not very manly. So men report even less, and it's totally understandable. But I really think we need to focus on male victims as well, because they are definitely out there. And everything we can do for female victims at our agency, we do for men. We don't bring them into shelter, but we do provide them with a safe place to stay, and all the other services that we give to female victims. So we need to realize that there are a growing number of male victims out there whom we need to reach and provide services to, just like the ladies, to help them get back on their feet and be independent and pursue a healthy relationship.
Now, even on a more sensitive topic, when we talk about dating violence, it doesn't just exclude heterosexual relationships. There's also some homosexual abuse. What are some of the ways that you go about approaching that situation and trying to help them get out of that? Because it is a little bit different than the traditional.
Dynamics are different, yeah, for sure. But it's still basically the same. To respect yourself. What do you expect in a safe and healthy relationship? What will you not accept from someone in a relationship? So whether it's two men, two women, or a man and a woman, a lot of it is the same thing: self-confidence, self-worth, self-respect, knowing what you will tolerate or what you will accept in a relationship. But domestic violence agencies are also trying to focus more on the LGBTQ community, to let them know that they deserve safety the same way anyone else does. They deserve a good, happy, loving, healthy relationship just like you and I do. And to try to identify that population and let them know that there are services to help them achieve that.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us today,
You're welcome.
Debbie.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be back in just a moment to wrap up Direction Northeast.
Going to college was a big decision, but when I graduate from Northeast State, I know I can have a career.
Over half of our employees are graduates of Northeast State Community College.
When we see Northeast State on an application, we always give that candidate a second look.
Our company partners with Northeast State, knowing that their students graduate as trained professionals that become our employees both today and into the future.
Discover the career opportunities that await you. Northeast State Community College.
But it would be safe to keep your distance until there's no secret that laughter makes you smile. Reliable sources say that chicken soup has found their way out of this dangerous, but they are returned.
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. Go to discovertheforest.org.
That concludes the program for today. We talked about domestic abuse with Ms. Debbie Masters, a community educator from Abuse Alternatives. Community is very important to the students at Northeast State Community College, and this program takes a look at a few of the subjects they find important. Until we meet next time, on behalf of the students, staff, and faculty of Northeast State Community College, I'm Abby Hathorn, and this is Direction Northeast.